Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The last chapter. Evelyn Graham was a woman of worlds. For nearly 5 decades, she had spun stories that shaped the hearts and imaginations of readers around the world. Her novels, filled with sweeping passions, tragic misunderstandings, and triumphant love, had earned her a place among the great romantic authors of her generation. Yet here she sat in her dimly lit study, the autumn wind tapping urgently against the window panes, a stark contrast to the quiet, wilting life inside her frail body. The diagnosis was merciless, late-stage cancer, and each day stole a bit more of her breath, her strength, her time. Now, the final manuscript of what she intended to be her magnum opus lay unfinished on a cluttered desk, its last chapters still whispers in her mind, untold. Evelyn had never imagined needing help with her craft. Writing was her sanctuary, her sole refuge where she had complete control. Yet, this time was different. This story was special, too personal to entrust to just anyone. She wanted it finished honestly, with gentleness, with the nuance she could no longer provide. So, after much deliberation, she hired Henry Whitaker, a young, promising ghostwriter known for his sensitivity to romance and deep character work. Henry arrived on a rainy Thursday morning, clutching his leather satchel and bristling with equal parts excitement and apprehension. The house was an old Victorian mansion perched on a hill overlooking a sleepy town bathed in amber hues from the low October sun. Evelyn, despite her gaunt frame, greeted him with a warmth that belied the fragility of her condition. She wore a silk scarf around her neck, hiding the pallor of treatments, and her eyes shone with that characteristic flicker of creative fire. "You'll find the manuscript in the study," she said softly, motioning him inside. "The chapters out there, they've been poured out by my heart, but I cannot finish them alone. I need your voice to carry the last whispers." Henry nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of the task. "But remember," she added, "this story is more than words on pages. It is my legacy. Treat it with care." Over the coming days, Henry immersed himself in Evelyn's world. Each chapter unfolded the poignant tale of Isabel and Thomas, two lovers torn apart by circumstance yet bound by a love so profound it transcended time and tragedy. The prose was exquisite but also raw and personal. There were layers of emotion so vivid Henry could almost feel the ache of their yearning deep within his chest. What surprised him most were the fragmented notes between the pages, scribbles and marginalia not just about plot or character but reflective musings about life, love, and mortality. He realized he was peeking into Evelyn's soul as much as her story. One evening, as a sharp chill crept through the room, Henry sat at her writing desk, attempting to follow the tone she had set. The candlelight flickered and his eyes strained over the words brimming on the page. Unbidden, he found himself speaking aloud the dialogue between Isabel and Thomas, their voices delicate and alive within his breath. The quiet house seemed to listen. Suddenly, it felt as if the very air thickened around him, like a curtain drawn back, revealing something just beyond the veil of reality. Henry blinked and caught a glimpse, a shimmer, a whisper of a figure standing across the room. A woman, translucent and luminous, her dark eyes kind and sorrowful. He swallowed hard. Evelyn's presence seemed to linger, a ghost tethered not by pain but passion, watching the story she could no longer complete. He wasn't sure if it was exhaustion or imagination, but the feeling of being observed, of history converging with the present, ignited something inside him. He would finish this tale, not just for a paycheck but to honor the love imprinted in every page. Days passed, and Henry became increasingly captivated by the story he was bringing to life. He wove in details that seemed to dance between the real and the surreal. The way Isabel's laughter seemed like a song carried on the wind, Thomas's touch a promise that lingered long after separation. Yet as he wrote, the boundaries blurred. The townsfolk Henry had visited during his research felt familiar, almost intimate. Letters and journals from the era he pored over weren't just history but lived experience. He sensed that Isabel and Thomas were not mere fiction born from a typewriter but souls entwined in a story that had touched Evelyn so profoundly because it was, somehow, true. One rainy afternoon, Henry ventured out to the local archives, chasing the roots of the tale. There, buried in dusty files, he discovered an old photograph, a young woman with striking dark eyes and an enigmatic smile, standing beside a man in a crisp suit whose expression was both stern and tender. The caption read, "Isabel Thompson and Thomas Caldwell, 1923. That name, Isabel, sent a shiver down his spine. Had Evelyn based her characters on real people? Was the story she struggled to finish a retelling of a long-lost love buried in time? Struck by a surge of empathy, Henry returned to Evelyn's home, manuscript in hand. The manuscript was nearly complete, but the final chapter remained elusive. Evelyn's condition had worsened, her breath was shallow but her gaze remained steady. Henry sat beside her, careful to keep a respectful distance. "I found something today," he said gently, sharing the photograph. Her trembling fingers reached out to touch it. Her voice was fragile but resolute. "They were my grandparents," she whispered. "Their love was forbidden. A scandal that tore my family apart before I was born. This book is a homage, my way to reconcile the past." Tears welled in her eyes, liberation in finally revealing the depths of her inspiration. "Finish it for them, for me." Henry nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. That night, as Evelyn drifted into a deep sleep, Henry took to the pages with renewed purpose. But as he typed the final lines, an extraordinary sense enveloped him. The room seemed aglow. Words transformed from ink to vivid images. Suddenly, he felt himself drawn into the story itself. The chilly study faded away and Henry found himself standing on a cobblestone street beneath a European dusk, where a woman in a flowing dress clutching a letter paused to look down the lane. Isabel. Her eyes met his, not as characters on a page but as a living, breathing woman. And in her glance, Henry realized that the story was no longer fiction. It was a living testament, a love that had transcended death, time, and space. He was not simply writing their story, he was rewriting history. The days that followed were a blur of surreal encounters and revelations. Henry learned Isabel's struggles, the prejudice they endured, the letters they sent in secret, stolen moments under moonlit skies. And through all of it, he felt an undeniable connection to Isabel and Thomas, as if their story was always part of him, waiting to be uncovered. Back in the present, Evelyn's health waned rapidly. Henry stayed by her side, reading aloud the completed manuscript chapter, their voices weaving through the room in a tender duet. As he reached the last sentence, a poignant promise of reunion beyond the veil, Evelyn's lips curved into a serene smile. "You brought them home," she murmured. "Thank you." Her passing was peaceful, her legacy sealed in words that touched not only readers' hearts but somehow reached into the very soul of love's eternity. Years later, the book was published under Evelyn's name, an instant classic celebrated for its emotional depth and timeless romance. Critics praised the authenticity of the narrative and the haunting portrayal of love against impossible odds. To Henry, it remained more than a bestseller. It was a sacred bond between past and present, between the living and those who linger in memory. On the anniversary of the book's release, Henry found himself back in that old Victorian house, now his sanctuary. As he held the first printed copy, a soft breeze stirred the curtains. He thought he saw a shadow, graceful, familiar, standing for a moment in the doorway. A silent thank you, a goodbye. Then nothing but the quiet heartbeat of the house. The last chapter was finished, But love's story continued infinite as the stars, eternal in the hearts it touched. For more stories, like and subscribe.